Last year at all of those protests, I mean, we showed you countless acts of police brutality and needless violence, both from the cops and then also from counter protesters against people who are just fighting for their rights, trying to push for a little bit more justice in the country. Now, some damage that was done to those protesters, it turned out, was a little bit less visible or a little bit harder to understand. But new studies are showing that the widespread use of tear gas and things like it by police to break up crowds, or sometimes just to punish them. There were many instances we showed you where they would hem protesters in so they couldn't leave, and then they would tear gas them. It wasn't to disperse them, there was nowhere for them to go. It was to punish them. Well, it turns out that can have effects, especially on women. So last summer, in the midst of all this, anecdotes started cropping up online of protesters convinced that regular exposure to the chemical had disrupted their menstrual cycles. A preschool teacher told Oregon Public Broadcasting that if she inhaled a significant amount of gas at night, she'd get her period the next morning. Other Portland residents shared stories of periods that lasted for weeks and of unusual spotting. Transgender men described sudden periods that defied hormones that had kept menstruation at bay for months or years. Nearly 900 people reported something like this, with symptoms including intense cramping and increased bleeding, headaches, nausea, diarrhea, mental health concerns. Well, now there's this study, and the results are available. You go to the New York Times and you can read that in depth if you'd like. But researchers talked to a ton of people about their exposure and what effects they had. And one of the study authors says, even though we cannot say anything scientifically definitive about these chemical agents and a causal relationship to menstrual irregularities, we can definitively say that in our study, most people who had menstrual cycles or a uterus reported menstrual irregularities after reporting exposure to tear gas. So this is not definitive, they're the first to say that. But Yasmin, it does appear that tear gas does have not only the obvious negative effects that we know, but specifically on women, some horrendous ones that haven't been talked about really at all.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what else these things are doing to us? I mean, it's chemical warfare and they're inflicting it on their own people, their own populations, not just in the United States, but all over. All protests around the world, every time you look into it, someone there is getting tear gassed. And they act like these really harsh chemicals, all they do is make it cry, and they just make your eyes kind of itchy and watery, they're harmless. Yeah. Impossible, there's no way. And even, I mean, I guess I'm extra sensitive about this topic too, because at least in Houston, it feels like more recently than before, there's just chemicals in the air and in our water, and they will kind of let us know, and they're like, yeah, it's fine now, you can go outside again. Like that's happened so many times in the last couple of months. And it's like, wow, what are they doing to us? They're killing us, and we don't even know what the effects are. And with the tear gas thing, these are people who are protesting, which is their constitutional right to do so, at least in the United States. I can't speak for every country, but protesting is a thing that people should be able to do, especially if they're doing it peacefully, which a lot of times they are, and they still get tear gassed for it. It reminds me of the umbrella protests in Hong Kong. I think that was 2019. And everybody, they had umbrellas, and that was their symbol for peace, because they say, we're not here to fight, but we have umbrellas to protect us from the tear gas that you're trying to get us with. And I thought that was such a powerful symbol and pretty clever on their part as well.
Yeah. And by the way, you're totally right. In this case, I think I'm very glad that people are questioning the police in a lot of ways that they haven't for a long time, or at least that there haven't been a sort of sustained public movement that's getting press coverage. But one part of that should be really questioning some of their tactics when it comes to equipment. We have this assumption that if something's been used for a long time, I guess it's safe. Well, they point out in this study that a lot of the stuff about tear gas, these are like old studies that the police did themselves over half a century ago. And I'm sure they were being super rigorous. But yeah, things like tear gas as well as other chemical irritants, and tear gas is just one of them. The widespread use of flashbangs, the less lethal stun guns and things like that. All of this has an effect on the body and needs to be acknowledged. Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.